Hello, it's been a while since I've made a Jabba the Hutt collection video like this, but I recently, and by recently I mean in the last several months, picked up a few items that I think some of you may be interested in anyway. Now, collectors of Star Wars figures, I think, often come to a point when they pretty much have everything that they want, especially if you're talking about vintage figures and not the ones that are sort of still coming out. And maybe they want to branch out into more rare things like things related to the production of the figures and prototypes of the figures and maybe the original sculpts for the figures, things like that. That's a little bit out of my price range and area of interest, to be frank, but I am kind of interested in things like prototypes, or I mean, we use the term prototype kind of loosely, but early production figures and things like that, things that are different from the ones that actually came out in the stores in some way or other, and particularly if they were used in the production of the figures themselves. That's pretty interesting to me as well. So that's what I'm going to show you today. So what we have here in front of me is the original, just the plain production figures, the ones that you could buy in the stores. To give you a quick recap, I've made videos about both of these figures in the past, and I'll link those up here. This one here is the Ultra Jabba figure, which you may recall was produced around the time of the Phantom Menace, so around 1999. And it was basically kind of a, I don't want to say a joke toy, but it was a bit of a novelty toy because it had a cavity inside where you could put a can of slime. You'll see all about that in the video I made if you want to. And then there was some plastic frogs and things. And you would just squeeze his head or stomach, and the slime would come out this mouth, which was cut open, as you can see here. So, you know, that's kind of a funny a figure. It's not exactly a pure action figure, but it's not a terrible sculpt, really. And, you know, especially if you were to repaint this, which I have done, you can get it to look fairly decent. This next one here is the so-called Ultra Jabba figure, which came out a few years later and is based largely on this figure, but they've kind of retooled it. The bottom part is identical. In fact, if we look at the date, it still says, I can't see, let's see, 1998. So I guess the production time would be 1998. But this came out in the sort of early to mid 2000s, as I recall. And so the bottom is the same. The top has been reworked a bit. This is a different face, as you may be able to tell. And they've added a tongue feature, which is removable. You could take this out and use his hookah, which, by the way, this came with this railing here. So you could have him sort of put his little hookah pipe in his mouth instead of his tongue, thusly. So these are the two products we're going to be talking about today. I managed to get prototype versions of both of these. So I want to go ahead and show you these. First of all, let's look at the Jabba Glob, because it comes first chronologically. But maybe before we do that, though, I just wanted to show you one real quick. I already showed this in the video earlier that I showed you, but you know, this is the mold for the Jabba Glob figure. Its bottom and the top here. This is a metal mold that would have been filled with this kind of soft latex, and it's actually a kind of mold where you would spin it around so that would coat the inside of this, and you would see, you know, it's got all this detail inside that would show up in the casting, and you'd just sort of peel it out. Anyway, so that's that. But one thing I didn't have up until now was one of these, which is a sort of prototype version. When I say prototype, as I mentioned before, it's a little difficult to know whether this was legitimately a prototype or just something that was sort of an extra that never got painted. But it is definitely different from the production line version for several reasons. Obviously, it's not painted, as I mentioned. I imagine it's got the same date. I don't even think I remember checking, but yeah, 1998 Hasbro. The top here, though, the mouth is not cut open like it is on the production version. And yeah, I mean, it's not a lot to this, really. I think we have the same color of green plastic, probably. It's just that this one has been painted. This does come with some of the frogs, but I think these are probably the same as the production one. These were never painted in the production one anyway. Oh, this one's a little bit misshapen too. That's interesting. So, you know, this was kind of an interesting find. It's not spectacular because, I mean, you could technically, except for the fact that the mouth is not cut open, you could recreate this just by taking a production figure and stripping the paint off of it. But still, I like the way these look, where you can just see the sculpt without any paint or without anything and any additions. It actually makes it look, I think, better in this case. This sculpt is actually better than we give it credit for, because this paint job is pretty terrible, and it kind of covers up a lot of that. Anyway, I got this, as I said, a little while ago, and I went to go put it up in my shelf, and I found something rather surprising right there. I found this, which is to say that I already had one of these and I didn't realize. Yeah. So the funny thing was, too, I was like, what on earth? I could not remember even buying this. And I went back and I looked in my auction, receipts, couldn't find any mention of this anywhere. And I thought I was going crazy or something. But as it turned out, I bought this one from a Japanese auction site. And that's why I didn't have any record of it in my normal auction receipts or anything like that. But there is an interesting thing about it, though, that this one apparently just uses the arms from a production figure. So it's got paint on the arms here. I imagine this was sort of cobbled together from a couple of different parts, and they were like, oh, we don't have any arms, we'll just take the arms off of a production figure. So that's actually one point in the favor of this new one, is that it doesn't have paint anywhere, and it seems to be entirely, untouched. But yeah, it was funny to find myself about to place this one on my shelf, and then there was already one there. I was like, oh boy, I'm losing it. But one thing, in fact, before I move on, I think they even still have some of these, or one of these, online on eBay for sale, although they've raised the price since I bought mine. If anyone's interested, you might want to check that out. I don't think these are available in very large quantities, but they're not like one of a kind by any means either. They're just sort of curiosities for sort of crazy collectors like myself. But anyway, as I said, this shares a lot of the same body parts with the old Ultra Jabba, which we showed you a minute ago. Let me get his tongue back. Where did it go? Oh dear. Here we are. I've never been a fan of this tongue feature, frankly. It just, I mean, it's fine to be able to do this as a kind of a novelty, but to have this be sort of the default version just seemed a little weird, because, Jabba shouldn't have his tongue lolling out like that all the time. Anyway, so I got, in addition to the Jabba Glob prototype, I also managed to find an Ultra Jabba prototype, which is a bit more rare from what I understand. This one I've been looking for quite a while, and you can see, unlike the other one, that this is a totally different color of plastic. So, like, just to explain here, this is basically the color of the plastic, although they've added some paint and other colors there, and then this yellowish orange is entirely paint. But if you look here, you can see it's a different shade of green. The arms are also a bit more of a gray-green. They're a different color than this, I guess, probably because they're a different color, they're a different kind of material. It's got the tongue, which is, I can't quite tell if that's a different color. It looks different to me, but it's a bit subtle. But you can, you really appreciate the sculpt, the details of the sculpt when you don't have any paint on it. This also came with a version of the railing. So this is the production railing that I showed you a minute ago. I'll put those back there. And here we have the prototype version of the railing. So it looks to me, yeah, these are different colored plastics. This does not have the same copyright information that's on this one. This one says 2010 Lucasfilm. This one says nothing. This one has a completely transparent hookah pipe, which is pretty cool. That's actually the way this one is too, but they make it in this transparent material and then paint it selectively to give this effect like it's metal or like there's something in the bottom. But it's cool to see it totally transparent like this. Also, of course, the hookah pipe hose is a different color. So, a lot of differences here. We also have the little froggy, which in the production version I think is a different color. I'm not sure where mine is, but we have this little guy here. Looks a little bit like Cthulhu, if you ask me. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this short look into my collection, and I'll see you again soon.